Good morning. My wife and I really enjoy the show Survivor, more so recently than ever before. And this current season, we watched every single episode. We did not miss an episode. Last night was the finale, and I missed a part of that episode. The finale was 3 hours long. Started at 8. I was told it ended at 11. And that's because the closer and closer I get to like 9:30, I don't know where I'm at anymore. 9 o'clock is bedtime, and I can try to stretch it to 9:30. But the longer I go, I'm no good. And so I really tried to watch as much as that as I could. But once it got past 9:30, I had to go to bed. And so I think I ended up in bed by 9:45. And so this morning I had to ask, of course, who won Survivor. But during the show last night, the part I did see, almost 2/3 that I did see, they were talking to all the contestants. And this season was really remarkable because I think there was 20 contestants. Every single contestant was a previous winner on Survivor. So this is like all the champions gathering together to be crowned like the ultimate champion. Well, 2 of the contestants were husband and wife, or are husband and wife. That they met doing the show Survivor, and each on their own had won a season of Survivor. So they were invited back, and the host asked the wife, what made you do the show? Why'd you come back for this season? And she said, I didn't want to. I didn't want to do this season. I had no interest in doing this season. But she said, I did the show this season for one reason. I did it for my husband. And she said, I did it because not only does he love this game, but he just respects this game. So then her husband, his name is Rob, but he's affectionately called Boston Rob because he's from Boston. He's my favorite. I would really like to meet him one day and just talk over some lunch. And he just broke down. You can tell that he just adores his wife. He's now a father, I think, of 3 little girls. But you can just tell he really enjoys his wife. And you can tell that she enjoys her husband. And so he's trying to hold back the tears as he talks about his wife and what a champion she is. Not because of Survivor, but who she is as a person. She's a champion. And then he said something. He said, we've been married for 15 years. And then when he said that, I started thinking about my wife. And what the thought that came to my mind is, this October, we will have been married for 20 years. And those 20 years, for me, have felt like learning on the job. There's a lot of mistakes I've made, and there's a lot I would like to redo. But it's been the greatest adventure. 20 years have been the greatest adventure. And I know in saying this that there's Boston Rob has been married for 15 years, and I'm telling you, come October, will have been married 20 years. I know there's someone listening that is thinking, oh yeah, I have been married for 43 years. And the way I know that there is at least one person listening to this today that is saying that right now, in view of 15 years of marriage, in view of someone's 20 years of marriage, that they're sitting here thinking, oh yeah, I've been married for 43 years. The reason I know that is that I know my father is saying that right now. And today is my parents' 43rd wedding anniversary. 43 years. And so that's on my mind. May 14th, today, 2020, it's on my mind, not just 43 years of marriage, but what's on my mind is marriage. And the passage I would like to read, and you may be thinking about it already, is Ephesians 5. And part of this, I guess, I was thinking all week what kind of gift I could get my parents for their anniversary. And I would like to make this part of my gift to my parents on their anniversary is Ephesians 5. And the part I want to pick up with is verse 25. Now, verse 22 would be a good spot to pick up on. But I want to pick up with verse 25, mainly because I am a husband. And so in talking about marriage and just reflecting on marriage today, and as a gift to my parents, I just want to look at verse 25 for this reason. It addresses husbands. It addresses Christian husbands. And Ephesians 5 verse 25 begins this way. Husbands, love your wives. That's a command. Husbands, love your wives. And there's a comma there. There's more to it. As Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor. Can you imagine so far? Are you wrapping your minds around this? The way a husband is to love his wife is as Christ loved the church. There's a lot of doing here, a lot of action, right? Giving yourself up for her, that you might sanctify her, perfect her, having cleansed her. How do you do that? Having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, with the Bible, for the whole purpose of this, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor. And this is talking about in marriage. Husbands, there's a wonderful task at hand. And marriage can be difficult. And at the same time, it's to be wonderful. It's difficult because we're sinners. And husbands can be rather hard-headed and a little insensitive. But here, it comes back to this all the time, doesn't it, husbands? How often we need to hear, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word. Think about the end result of this, so that he might present the church to himself in splendor. Our wives are to be women of beauty and of impact as a result of how we love them. Sometimes wives are women of beauty and of impact in spite of us, but they are to be women of beauty and impact because of us and how we love them, sacrifice for them, give ourselves up for them, sanctify them, cleanse them with the washing of the word. It keeps going. So that he might present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. In the same way, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. So far, what do you think the big idea is? It's been repeated twice. Husbands, love your wives. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no one ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and cherishes it. Husbands, are you making note of these actions when it comes to our relationships with our wives? Just as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. Therefore, and this is a quote of Genesis, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife. I love that wording. Cleave to his wife. Hold fast to her. And the two shall become one flesh. Listen to verse 32. It's pretty awesome. This mystery is profound. Marriage is a mystery, and marriage is profound. This mystery is profound. And get ready what Paul says next. And I am saying that it refers to Christ and the church. However, let each one of you love his wife as himself, and let the wife see that she respects her husband. So, in short, marriage is ultimately a picture of how Christ loves his church. Marriage is a representation. The relationship between a husband and wife is a picture, it's a sermon of how Christ loves the church. Some have put it this way, that it's a picture of the gospel. It preaches the gospel. And that's true. But the way I've been thinking about it this morning is in how I approach my wife, how I think of her, how I talk of her, how I talk to her, how I treat her, how I love her. There is theme music to all of that. I wondered, like in our weddings, what is it called? The wedding march, when the bride comes down the aisle to meet her husband there at the end. And I think maybe sometimes, is it the music Pachelbel's Canon? Is that right? I just wondered if instead the theme music to the bride walking down the aisle to meet her husband, I just wondered if it should be Jesus loves me. Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. And it's because that when I as a husband when I'm done at the end of the day, when it's time for me to go to bed, which is like 9 o'clock, how I've treated Lisa throughout the day, thought of her, talked to her, treated her, loved her. When it's done, it should be reminding her and reminding my children and reminding all those who experience me around my wife. Music should be going off. It should remind them of how much Jesus loves you, how much Jesus loves his church, and the extent to which he went all the way to the cross. He gave himself up for her. So it's sacrificial, right? There are things I am to sacrifice for the needs of my wife, for her sake. And so that's just what came to mind today, that the theme music to every marriage should be, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so. So, happy anniversary to my parents. Marriage is a good thing. It's a difficult thing, but at the same time, there's wonder to it. And we do have to work at it. And to think what God has called husbands to do in their marriages for his glory, as a picture of the gospel, as a preaching of the gospel. Jesus loves you. Ephesians 5, marriage, the love of Christ, and husbands' duty to love their wives as Christ has loved the church.